The DA started as a tiny opposition party, winning only 1.7% of the national vote in 1994. Over time, it professionalized and expanded its appeal beyond white voters, promoting a market driven liberal platform focused on accountability and private sector growth. By 2006, the party entered metropolitan government in Cape Town through coalitions, and in 2009, it achieved outright control in the Western Cape. By 2024, the DA was part of the government of national unity after the ANC lost its outright majority. These milestones are often cited as proof of competence, but growth in voter support doesn't necessarily equal readiness to govern nationally. Expanding from a provincial stronghold to a fractured, diverse country with vastly different needs is not the same as managing a single city. Millions of South Africans may see the DA as an alternative, but their performance outside the Western Cape is largely untested. The party's ability to translate localized administrative wins into national scale governance remains speculative. Its historical base still resists inclusion, and its liberal market first ideology may alienate large segments of the population who rely on stronger social safety nets. So while the DA has grown and professionalized from what it used to be, that growth doesn't prove it can handle the real pressures of governing a country like South Africa at a national level. The DA's Western Cape stronghold often gets highlighted as evidence of competence. It boasts relatively low unemployment rates compared to other provinces, somewhat cleaner audits, and what they report to be disciplined fiscal management in the municipalities it controls. Seemingly independent evaluations, such as those from Good Governance Africa, have given DA municipalities high scores. Perhaps there could be a funding connection there. I'm not sure yet, but I am looking into it. If you know, maybe you could let me know. They're not quite forthcoming about who the international development agencies are that fund them and what their mandate is. But anyway, I digress. But it seems like there is no denying that the party has demonstrated some administrative ability where it governs. However, these wins are limited in scope. Poorer areas within the province still face major service delivery issues, and job creation figures are often exaggerated or misleading, as Africa Check fact checks have shown. Africa infrastructure gaps persist, especially outside affluent urban areas, and inequality remains pronounced. Good audits on paper do not automatically translate into tangible improvements for the majority of residents. Furthermore, governance success in a relatively well off province doesn't mean that the party can deliver across the national spectrum where challenges are exponentially more complex. These signals suggest that while the DA has achieved localized success, its track record is patchy and heavily dependent on context. Any attempt to scale this model nationally would encounter vastly different socioeconomic realities. So, yes, there are minor wins, but they are far from evidence of readiness to govern the country. And they do very little to mitigate concerns over equity, inclusivity, and responsiveness to national needs. The DA's classical liberal approach prioritizes limited governance intervention, pro business policies, and market led growth. On paper, this produces clarity on fiscal discipline and anti corruption frameworks, but in practice, it risks overlooking the urgent needs of the majority. Social safety nets and redistributive policies are often secondary, leaving large segments of historically disadvantaged South Africans increasingly vulnerable. On employment issues, for instance, the DA has frequently opposed or diluted measures like expanded corrective programs or employment equity adjustments, alienating working class citizens who depend on such protections. Its policy orientation, honed in more affluent provinces, may not adapt well to the complex realities of rural or underdeveloped regions. South Africans want policies that balance growth with equity, But the DA has consistently leaned toward the interest of middle class and business constituencies. So it's not really for the people per se. Major priorities like raising the minimum wage to at least 50 Rand per hour show little movement under the party's platforms, and proposals to strengthen local enterprise over foreign business investment are weak or absent altogether. The DA's ideological clarity is double edged. It provides consistency, but it also exposes limitations in addressing widespread inequality, unemployment, and systemic poverty. For voters seeking real transformation, the DA's policy framework offers minor efficiencies in pockets of wealth, but fails to scale or address national socioeconomic disparities comprehensively. South Africans expect strong national leadership on security, technology, and strategic sovereignty. One glaring issue is the DA's stance on Starlink. While the nation largely opposes Elon Musk's satellite internet for national security reasons, the DA has actively advocated for it, undermining its credibility as a defender of national interest. The party's approach to broader security challenges like potential nuclear deterrence is unclear. Questions remain about whether it can develop alliances and political will to protect the nation as a whole rather than small constituencies already privileged groups. South Africans are concerned about safeguarding their sovereignty and technological independence, and the DA's position suggests that it prioritizes ideology and market solutions over public will. If governance begins with policies that ignore popular security concerns, it signals a misalignment with citizen priorities. These missteps indicate the DA may not have the judgment or national perspective necessary to navigate complex geopolitical challenges. A government that can't protect infrastructure or assert control over critical technologies or even develop comprehensive national defense policies is fundamentally untrustworthy, regardless of minor administrative wins in the Western Cape. South Africans are looking for leaders who can act decisively on matters that affect everyone. And the DA has yet to demonstrate that capacity, if they even care about that arm of governance, which is the most important one for a nation like South Africa, with its history and current needs. Raising the minimum wage to at least 50 Rand per hour is a clear demand from South Africans, but the DA shows no evidence it would champion such a policy. Historically, the party has emphasized business flexibility, fiscal discipline, and market driven solutions rather than aggressively improving worker pay. Proposals for wage reform are often weak, delayed, or framed to protect private sector profits over citizens' livelihoods. For ordinary workers, this means continued economic vulnerability. It means stagnant income and limited upward mobility. While the DA talks about job creation, the focus is overwhelmingly on investment friendly policies that don't necessarily translate into higher or livable wages for the majority. Audits and efficiency metrics in DA run municipalities cannot compensate for a national lack of proactive measures to ensure fair compensation. South Africans are increasingly frustrated with wage stagnation and the widening gap between the rich and the poor, and the DA's ideological stance does very little to address these pressing inequalities. So the message is clear. If people expect meaningful, measurable improvements in worker earnings, the DA is unlikely to deliver. Fiscal prudence alone is not enough when millions struggle to meet basic living costs. In this context, trusting the DA with national economic justice is risky, and voters must consider whether efficiency in pockets of governance outweighs failure to address urgent socioeconomic priorities across the country. Land reform is another area where the DA falls short. South Africans demand more aggressive action to redistribute underutilized land to stimulate economic growth and break concentrated power structures. If the DA's policy positions are cautious and hesitant, the party has repeatedly avoided taking bold stances, preferring incremental approaches that favor property rights over equitable access. While this might appeal to wealthy constituencies, it does very little for rural communities or historically disadvantaged groups waiting meaningful transformation. So, in practice, the DA risks perpetuating economic and spatial inequality by defending existing land structures and resisting aggressive redistribution programs. National scale reform requires decisive political will, yet the DA's track record in the Western Cape shows a preference for stability over radical change. Citizens want reform that unlocks agricultural productivity, one that creates jobs and strengthens local economies. But under the DA, such efforts would likely remain partial and politically constrained. This cautiousness signals a lack of readiness to tackle the structural imbalances that continue to hold the country back. While the party may highlight orderly property administration or legal safeguards as wins, these pale in comparison to the transformative changes that South Africans need. When it comes to land and power redistribution, the DA's approach is too timid to inspire confidence in its ability to deliver results nationally. Supporting small businesses and prioritizing local employment over foreign corporate influence is another critical expectation. South Africans want policies that empower local entrepreneurs, that expand domestic markets, and generate sustainable jobs from within. Yet the DA's record shows limited action in the space. Its focus on investment, private sector growth, and regulatory simplification often favors larger corporations over small enterprises, leaving local business development under supported. Training programs, access to capital, and incentives for small scale entrepreneurs remain minimal in practice, even when promised. For voters, this is a major concern. Job creation under the DA's model risks benefiting external investors more than the local workforce. The party's ideology favors efficiency, but efficiency without inclusivity does little to tackle unemployment or economic inequality. While DA municipalities might highlight clean audits or predictable service delivery as achievements, these metrics don't directly help small entrepreneurs thrive or challenge entrenched foreign corporate dominance. Citizens seeking tangible economic empowerment and local job creation have little reason to trust the DA to prioritize these outcomes nationally. The signals are clear. Policy decisions favoring foreign investment over empowering domestic actors indicate the party may continue practices that sustain dependence rather than foster independent economic growth, leaving millions of small business owners and employees without any meaningful support. When we consider governance, ideology, national security, economic justice, land reform, and support for local business, the DA shows serious gaps. Minor wins in the Western Cape cannot offset broader deficiencies at the national scale. The DA's strategic missteps reveal a pattern of misreading national priorities, like pushing for Starlink entry despite public resistance and bypassing ICASA and parliamentary oversight, offering no coherent defense for nuclear strategy, resisting meaningful minimum wage increases, taking an overly cautious stance on land reform, and failing to prioritize small businesses over foreign corporate interests. These are not minor gaps. They point to a party likely to falter on the issues that actually define national governance, specifically for South Africa today. Coalition tensions and inconsistent messaging further undermine public trust and show a party still grappling with scaling from provincial to national governance. So I think that we can all see where the DA is headed if we allow it to govern for the sake of sticking it to the ANC. My question to you is, do you think it would be worth it if we let them have even a sliver of more power? Is it time to scale back their voice in parliament already? The evidence suggests caution, not optimism, and voters should weigh whether temporary dissatisfaction with one party justifies handing authority to another whose track record signals more risk than reward.